Yo, what's up, people? Before we get into this video, I want to give a quick shout out to a knife channel that I watch myself. Also, it's called It's a Knifestyle. I will leave you the link in the description box. Um, he has really good videos. I do, like I said, I do really enjoy them. And yeah, if you just go over there, watch some of his videos, if you like them, go and subscribe to him. He's just a couple of subscribers away from 1,000, and I think he definitely deserves it. So yeah, shout out to It's a Knifestyle. All right, people. This is the Rook D191-B. I have this for, I think, more than a year now, and it's a great knife. Okay, it's a great budget knife between 20 and 30 euros. Rook is not the kind of manufacturer that I think can really keep up with all the other budget knife manufacturers. It's really competitive right now. Chinese budget knives. There are a lot of them, as you know, CBB, Real Steel, all the different ones. There are so many. Rook is actually they are the knife company that belongs to Phoenix. So it's the same company basically that makes the Phoenix flashlights. I did have really good experiences with Phoenix flashlights. I do really like them. They are very reliable usually and don't cost that much. So yeah, when I saw this knife, the first time I saw it, I think I overlooked it, and it wasn't really that exciting to me. And I looked at it many times after that, and it never got me really. But at one point, I searched for like a 10 centimeter or a 4-inch budget knife, and there are not too many 10 centimeter or 4-inch budget knives out there, so I chose this one. And I'm glad I did, because this knife is actually pretty cool. As you can see, design wise, it looks pretty futuristic, but also very sleek and elegant in a way. It has a little bit of that Russian design language going on, you know, with a nice aggressive drop point, not too much going on at the handle, a flipper. Actually, there is a lot going on at the handle, but it doesn't seem like it at the first glance. We have G10 scales, and we have a steel frame lock that actually looks pretty good. It almost looks like a titanium frame lock, so we don't need a steel insert because it's already steel. And then we have a 8CR 13mm blade. A lot of people are turned off by that. I'm not turned off by 8CR 13 at all. I think it's a good budget knife steel because first, it's a stainless, it takes a good edge, and it has a lot of edge toughness. So in the whole year that I had this knife, sorry, there's a little bit of from my camera hanging into the picture, into the frame, I mean, whatever. In the 1 year that I got this knife, how did the steel hold up? Well, obviously there was some edge damage to it, because if you don't have edge damage in any way or form, so blunting, rolling, or chipping, you're probably not using your knife correctly. It doesn't matter the steel, so or enough, I should say, not correctly. The edge held up really nice. It was still cleanly slicing paper. We had a couple of hang-ups here and there. I just a couple of minutes ago I resharpened this knife because I'm actually gonna give this away to a friend, and it took a really clean edge. I took some diamond stones from DMT and then some ceramic stones from Spyderco. Took a really nice and clean edge. As you can hear, very silently going through the paper. So I was excited about that. The HCR13MOV did sharpen up nicely and quickly also. That's probably one of the benefits of HCR13MOV, that it sharpens up quickly. Yeah, like I said, for a budget knife, I think HCR13MOV is a good steal. I will throw in some size comparisons, and yeah, we started with a couple of others, 10 centimeter or 4-inch knives. Here's a Recon 1 that I find myself to carry this knife a lot recently. Had the Recon for a long time. Here's an Endura, same size in the blade, but looks a little bit shorter overall. Let me move this up here, okay. This knife right here is on the sleeker, thinner side. So we have like a 3mm blade stock, so it's thin and pointy. Not so much a reinforced tip, but more of a precise tip, I should say. But also a very wide and thin cutting geometry. It is really good for slicing. We have 0.28mm in the front section, 0.3mm in the back section, which is 11 thousandths. Pretty good for a 3mm knife to have less than 3mm behind the edge, less than 0.3mm behind the edge. That's a pretty good cutting geometry. So it slices well, especially with that wide blade. Yeah, I roll in more size comparisons. So here we have another Spyderco, the Spyderco Paramilitary 2. Most people know this knife. And also really popular, well-known knife, Buck 110. Let's go with more traditionals. Here's a Victorinox Pioneer, so the normal-sized Victorinox. And then, how about an Ontario Red? The Red is kind of a staple in the budget knife world. Here we have a Real Steel. I mentioned Real Steel before. I think they're really killing it these days with their slip joints. Here's the Real Steel G-Slip. Great knife for the money. And the Real Steel Stellar. Both of these knives will get a review in a couple of weeks, I guess. I need to do more testing on them before I will review them. And here is a Civivi, also with a 10 centimeter or 4-inch blade. Civivi Governor, that is. Not so many budget knives with a 10 centimeter blade, like I said. And yeah, I don't think Rook is getting the attention that they deserve, because most of their knives are a little bit too heavy for what they are, and that's usually because they use steel frame lock. So how heavy is this knife? And I don't think this knife is overweight for 10 centimeters. It has 122 grams, which is 4.3 ounces. It's not that bad, really, but I think it could be lighter for the thinness in the handle that we are looking at. Bringing the PM2 out again. So it's actually a little bit thinner than the PM2, which the PM2 is already a thin knife. Yeah, G10, like I said, on the other side, there are no liners underneath the G10, which is good, and we have some milling in the steel. You can see this knife is really dirty in the inside. So this knife basically has not been cleaned in an entire year, except once when I got it, and I will clean it before I give it away again. But despite the dust inside here and the whole gang, it's still running really smoothly. I will show you how this knife looks inside actually. This knife runs on needle bearings, and it's pretty easily disassembled. So it doesn't take much. You just need a T6 and a T8, and yeah, pretty easy disassemble. Let's talk about the action now. I think the action is pretty clean for the price range we are looking at. It could be more refined, but again, for 20 to 30 euros, I don't think this is a bad flipper at all. So for who is this knife really? I think this is a knife that if you want a lot of design like this, like I said, this Russian design language, Russian flipper design, but you can't afford them because they usually run you for like 500 euros or even more. This is a great option if you want a slicer with a wide blade. This is not a hard use, you know, pry shit apart knife. It's really not, although I did pry apart some cardboard that was glued together, but I could already feel that this was pushing the knife to its limit. So it has a lot of up and down strength. So I did spine whack the shit out of this knife to see if the lock would hold up. This is really loud. By the way, the lock is nice and engaged out of the box. I do not like early lockup on budget knives that much because they tend to fail pretty easily usually. So I do not have any problems, and the lock really didn't move that much from spine whacking and also from using it for a year. So I was happy to see that the lock is nice and secure, doesn't fail when you push it a little bit. But this knife is not a hard use knife in the sense that you can pry things apart with. It's also not that great for, let's say you go out in the woods and you want to use this as a secondary and just carve away wood. It's not that great for that because the ergonomics on a thin knife are not that great for that kind of tasks. And also we have that spot right here that is kind of gives you a really hot spot if you use this for too long for harder cutting. But as long as you cut cardboard or even a harder cutting with gloves on, it's really not a problem. But as long as you cut cardboard and softer materials, cut open boxes, leathers, all that stuff, I think this knife holds up great for that. And yeah, and that's where it really shines. Also food prepping and all that stuff. Like I said, it's a slicer. It's a good, nice slicer with a pointy point and a thin cutting geometry. If you tend to break tips on your knife, this is probably not the knife you're looking at. But if you are careful and use it as a knife is intended, this knife will probably serve you pretty well. I do not like the pocket clip that much. It works really well, but it's also kind of visible. I guess that would be the only negative thing I would have to say about this knife is that the pocket clip is pretty visible in the pocket. I noticed when I wore this knife that other people tend to notice it actually, which I don't really like at all. So I stopped carrying it honestly because of that reason. So I wish it had a deep carry pocket clip, but you can, for instance, carry it inside the waistband or in your pocket when you move through places where there are a lot of people. But if you just use it at work or something, you know, where people are not bothered by that, it should be fine. So yeah, that's probably my only complaint. The steel holds up really nice for 8CR13 MOV. You get a ton of edge retention. Actually, it's a well heat treated 8CR13 MOV. I don't know how hard they run this. I read some things like 58 HRC or something. Not sure if that is true, but it certainly could be because I didn't get the steel to roll easily. And if it did, you can restrop it back pretty easily and you can also maintain it. So you do not need to have a lot of experience in sharpening in order to maintain this knife, which is why I think budget knives with 8CR13 MOV are not that bad because I don't know, I do want to use my budget knives and I do want to use them hard and want to be able to restrop them in the field. I don't need D2 on a budget knife really. If I want edge retention, I go for a more expensive knife anyway. So I don't know. I think this is a good work knife, and still you get a lot of edge retention for the steel that they give you. So I guess the heat treatment is good and the manufacturing is good. The quality is good. Here's your blade centering, by the way. Again, the lockup. Very slim knife also in that way. You can see, especially with the Recon, but the Recon is a really wide blade. But this knife is not very wide in the pocket, so it carries pretty well because it's thin and sleek, but it still has a wide blade. So yeah, I can highly recommend this knife. Rook deserves way more attention than they usually get. I think the only thing they're doing wrong really these days, and they're not really doing anything wrong, it's just the budget knife market is so competitive, but I think the only thing they should change is maybe try to save some weight in some of their designs, because they have really good designs, but usually they weigh a little bit too much. It's like if you want to fight at lightweight, but you have middleweight weight actually, then you can't really compete in that category. So I think that's the only problem that Rook has, because other than that, their build quality is great, the heat treatment is great, their geometries are great. I wish they would get more attention, because they really deserve it. So yeah, that's it for today's video. Like I said, check out It's a Knifestyle, the link in the video description, and have yourself a nice rest of your day, people. Goodbye.